Today we're talking about how Jesus keeps his promises, and we're going to read the last in our Max Lucado books called If Only I Had a Green Nose. Lucia and Punchinello looked out the window of Eli's workshop. Like other Wemmicks, they were wooden people, but unlike other Wemmicks, they weren't standing in line in the village below. "Look at them all," Punchinello exclaimed. "I don't understand it," Lucia wondered. "Why would anyone want to paint his nose green?" "Because everyone else is," Eli responded without looking up from his workbench. Punchinello didn't understand. "What do you mean?" "Everyone wants to look like everyone else. Sometimes it's square hats, sometimes it's tall shoes. Why, last year the big thing was yellow ears. Now it's green noses. Everyone wants a green nose." "Does a green nose make them smarter?" Punchinello asked. "No." "Does a green nose make them stronger?" "No." "Does it make them faster?" "No." "Then what does a green nose make them?" Eli looked up and smiled. "Greener." But his smile left when he looked out the window at the long line of Wemmicks. "They think they'll be happier if they look like everyone else, but I made them different on purpose. Freckles, long noses, bright eyes, dark eyes, these were all my ideas. Now they all want to look the same." "Not me," said Lucia. "I'm happy just the way you made me." "Me too," agreed Punchinello. "I don't need a green nose to feel special." Then he paused and looked at the village. "But I would like to see how a green nose looks up close. Want to go?" Eli smiled as the two stood to leave. "Just remember that I made you different on purpose," he told them. And from the street level, the line looked even longer and the noses even greener, and Lucia and Punchinello worked their way down to the front of the crowd and watched as one Wemmick after another stepped up to the nose coloring store and came out painted. "It's the latest thing," barked the Wemmick on the sidewalk. "Don't be the only Wemmick with a plain nose." "Who's that?" asked Punchinello. Lucia shrugged. "I don't know." "Why, that's Mr. Willie Whippet," volunteered a Wemmick from behind them. "Does he run the nose painting store?" asked Punchinello. "More than that," the Wemmick explained. "Painted noses were his idea. So were the square hats and the tall shoes and the yellow ears. New things are his thing. He decides what's with it. Isn't he the best?" Lucia and Punchinello took a good look at this tall Wemmick with the deep voice and the big smile. Tall hat, green bow tie that matched his oh so great green nose. Both were thinking the same thing. Lucia asked the question, "Who made him the new thing picker?" The Wemmick looked puzzled, like he had never been asked that question before. "Well, I don't know. He just always has." Then his eyes brightened. "Wait, look, here comes a new nose." "Ooh," the Wemmick said. "Ah," admired some of the others. The just painted Wemmicks didn't stop to speak. He just kept his nose in the air and walked past. And all the green-nosed Wemmicks did this. After all, how could your nose be seen if it wasn't in the air? Walking around high-nosed, however, was risky. Wemmicks walked into walls and doors and even each other. Lucia and Punchinello had to be very careful. One Wemmick took up the whole street. Step back," he announced. It was the mayor. "Make way, every Wemmick. My wife is coming in for a touch-up." And with one hand, he waved all the citizens back, and with the other, he guided her through the crowd. "Horrible, just horrible," she cried, covering her nose with both hands. "I chipped some paint when I bumped into a tree, and now the real me is showing. Horrible, just horrible." The crowd passed. Lucia shook her head. "Such a fuss over this green nose." "Yeah," agreed Punchinello. "You'll never catch me in the nose coloring store." "Aw, Punch, I was hoping you'd go." Punchinello recognized the voice immediately. "Twiggy?" He turned and looked at the wide-eyed, sweet-smiling Wemmick. His ears began to turn red. They always did when he saw her. He reached up and covered them. "Why don't you just paint your nose, Punch? I painted mine. Everyone else is painting theirs. Besides, you'd look good in green." Twiggy reached up and touched the tip of his nose. Yours is so cute." And with that, she turned away and walked away. "Bye-bye," she waved. Punchinello moved one hand from his ear to his nose and turned and looked at his reflection in the store window. Lucia had to grab his hand and get his attention. "Come on, Punchinello, let's go." As he walked past the store, he noticed Willie Whippet examining his own nose in the handheld mirror. And later at home, he did the same. "I never noticed before, but my nose sure does look pale." The next morning, Punchinello walked down the street with his friends, Splint and Woody. "Are you really thinking about it?" Woody asked. "Sort of," Punchinello answered. "They say the paint stings your nose," Woody volunteered. "And it stinks," Splint added. "The brush could get in your eyes," Woody continued, "and it only comes off with sandpaper." Splint nodded. "Shh!" Punchinello put a finger to his lips and pointed at the large crowd of green-nosed Wemmicks standing in the square. "Something's going on." The mayor was standing on a platform. His white nose, freshly painted, and Willie Whippet were on either side. "Welcome, one and all, to the first meeting of the Nosy Wemmicks Club. Your glistening green sets you apart as a Whippet Wemmick." And as if on cue, Wemmicks began stroking their nose. "You are classy, you are keen, and you are awesome, and you are green." Proud of his poetry, the mayor smiled, and the Wemmicks applauded. "We owe it all to Willie Whippet," he shouted over the noise, "the pioneer of the painted snout." Everyone applauded even louder. "People love me because of you," one shouted. "I have more friends," cried another. "With the green nose, I am a better Wemmick," exclaimed the third. The mayor hung a medal around the neck of Willie Whippet. "You have changed the face of Wemmicksville. We salute your brilliance. And without you, we'd all look alike." The mayor paused, looking for the right words, and then he saw Punchinello and his friends. Pointing in their direction, he declared with a scornful laugh, "Them!" Everyone else laughed too, and Punchinello and his two friends lowered their heads and covered their noses. "Let's hear it for Willie Whippet, the Wemmick who discovered a cure for the common nose." As the townspeople shouted and applauded, Woody and Splint and Punchinello quickly turned and walked away. They didn't stop until they stood in front of the nose coloring shop, and within a matter of minutes, all of three of them were painted with and walking down the Wemmick lane. "Hey, Punchinello," said Splint, pushing his nose upward. Am I doing it right?" Punchinello didn't look. "I can't see you, Splint. If I turn, my nose won't be in the air." "Phew, this is tough work," said Woody. "Not only do you have to get painted, but you have to walk weird." "Yeah, but doesn't it feel great to be with it?" Punchinello asked. And for a few days it did. They hung out with the green noses, and they made weekly visits to the nose oculist for a nose polish, and they bought nose gloves for cold days and nose brellas for rainy ones, and all three read Willie Whippet's new book, Winter by a Nose. Most of all, they enjoyed looking at their noses, looking down their noses at the unpainted Wemmicks. One day they were feeling especially smug. Splint said to Punchinello, "I just can't imagine who wouldn't have a green nose." Punchinello agreed. "Anyone without a green nose is so..." "So what?" a voice interrupted. It was Lucia. Punchinello was embarrassed. "I haven't seen you in a while," he said. "You haven't seen anyone in a long time," she replied, "except yourself." He started to speak, but he didn't. He was bothered by what she said, and he was even more bothered by what he saw. He saw it the next morning as the three were walking to Wemmicksville. Standing on the other side of the road was a Wemmick with a red nose. "He needs to get with it," they said to one another. But when they saw another Wemmick with a red nose, and then a third and a fourth, and by the time they were in the village, they were surrounded by red-nosed Wemmicks. And all those whose noses weren't red were in line to have them painted. "Step right up," shouted Willie Whippet from the steps of his store. "Green noses are out, and red noses are in." "But we just got our noses painted green," they told him. "No problem," he said. "Our red will cover the green. Step right up and get in style." The three friends looked at each other. "We thought we were in style," Woody moaned. What could they possibly do but stand in line and have their nose painted red? For a few days they fit in until one morning they saw blue-nosed Wemmicks. "Oh no," they said to each other, "not again." So they changed colors, but it was only a short time until blue noses were out and pink noses were in. Then pink was out and yellow was in and yellow was out and orange was in. Soon Punchinello and his buddies had so many layers of paint on their noses that they couldn't remember what they really looked like. This has to be the final color, they said the day that they walked out with orange noses. But once again, they were wrong. I'm so tired of this, Woody moaned when he saw a purple-painted Wemmick. I wish my nose was common again. The three sat on the rock, hung their heads. Me too, agreed Punchinello. I should have listened to Eli. Do you think he would help us? Why don't you ask him? All three turned around the sound of the familiar voice. Lucia, they said. He asks about you every day, she told them. Is he mad? Punchinello wondered. Sad, but not mad. We just want to be ourselves again, Splint said. I'm glad to hear that. Can we, they asked. Of course you can, Eli replied. I'll always help you be who I made you to be. And then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of sandpaper, but it's gonna take some time. And so Punchinello and his friends followed their maker into his workshop, where he spent the rest of the day removing the paint. And it hurt to be sanded, but it was worth it to be normal again. And just like Eli, God promises to help us be who he made us to be.